Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher to walk you through Game 3 of the NBA Finals. The series is evened at 1 and transitions to Miami. Mike, how are you?
Doing good. Glad to be back home. Didn't hook up my mic stand. I kind of lost track of time, but haven't hooked up for the DFS show. But excited to be back home and back in the content streets, unencumbered.
Yeah, the trying to do content on the road, always a challenge. Let's get into this. This should be relatively short, as these injury report shows are during the playoff time. We'll start with the Miami Heat because, well, they're the only ones that have filed anything. Denver has a fully clean injury report, so nothing to talk about there. On the Miami Heat side, Tyler Hero still out, Victor Oladipo out. Some of this reporting around Tyler Hero has been interesting, to say the least, given Shams came out the day after game 1, suggesting he could be potentially available for game 2. They ruled him out fairly early before game 2, ruled him out fairly early before game 3. Eric Spoelstra's comments seem to suggest that, it's not even a given that he's going to return in this series. Any notes that you have on Tyler Hero and a potential return in this series?
Yeah, very different approach from the national peeps and the local peeps. The local peeps are basically saying he has like no chance of playing. Obviously, we heard the reports from Hero himself speaking with Raz Goldamude, saying there's still some soreness in his hand. He's listed out. Obviously, we know that teams can upgrade the OKC move, the midday upgrade, which is usually a good thing. But Spoelstra said he's not cleared. Seems pretty unlikely he's going to play. Maybe if they lose this one, they go that route. But yeah, I kind of believe everything's going on here. I think he's probably like best case scenario getting the non-Jimmy minutes, something along those lines, just to give a little
Right.
bit of extra oomph on the offensive end. So yeah, I think they're comfortable going without him. Obviously, we know that Duncan Robinson is a player that Spoelstra doesn't like to play with Hero, and with the way he's been playing and the way Strus has been playing, and Gabe Vincent's been awesome. Lowry has a little bit of value there. They're going to have to play bigger with Kevin Love, so it's just like, where do you fit him in here on top of the hand soreness thing? So yeah, it seems like they'll have him not out there. Definitely going to expect Kevin Love to start. That starting lineup was unbelievable in 22 minutes, 76 defensive rating against the freaking awesome Nuggets unit. Most of those minutes were against the first unit guys as well. So yeah, we kind of know where the rotation is going to look like. Kevin Love starting. We'll see if he closes. The fourth quarter, the Spoelstra magic continues. Plus 30 clutch net rating. They're, I think, plus 20 fourth quarter net rating in the playoffs. Both are first by a lot. Spoelstra, just mixes it up with who he wants to close with, unless it was the red hot Caleb lineup in the Boston series. Goes out there and runs a lineup that he wasn't really using and just dominates early in the fourth. So, yeah, that dude is just a wizard.
Sticking with the injury side of things, we've got available tags on Gabe Vincent and Bam Adebayo. The Gabe Vincent one, left ankle soreness, is a new listing for this series. Cody Zeller has been sort of downgraded from available to probable with this right foot sprain that he has. Is there anything that we should be reading into any of these? Obviously, all three players expected to be available tonight.
Yeah, this should be good. We saw, well, Zeller was being listed with the mask. Usually, if a player has a mask on, sometimes they'll just throw him on. Oh, yeah, he's got a messed up face, but he's got a mask. He's going to play. So that explains that. We saw that Q tag upgraded probable tag, and then never any doubt, a couple games ago. So, or was that last game? It's kind of tough to tell with the way things are spaced out here. But yeah, they should be good to go. You and I are just clamoring for Cody Zeller to go away. Minus 63 net rating in the Zeller minutes. They're getting absolutely pummeled in those minutes. But they've were able to pull out a win. So that's definitely the adjustment that we're all waiting for here. As we just took a Kevin Love over, we're hoping that maybe Love could get some of those minutes as well.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. Miami's at 1-1 in the series. They played Cody Zeller through. They played him in Game 7 of the Boston series, so they've had enough confidence to keep running him out there. But obviously, the minutes have gone specifically poorly against Nikola Jokic. We'll see if that potentially changes. Let's keep it focused on the Heat with the rotation stuff. I think that's really the biggest thing right now. We did see Caleb Martin's minutes come down last game with Kevin Love moving to the starting lineup. There is some question mark over whether that was tied to the questionable tag that he ended up landing due to illness. He's not listed on the injury report tonight. I still think, it's exceptionally likely that Kevin Love continues to start given the success of that lineup. But the question for me is, will Caleb Martin be able to take on more minutes? Was his role limited by his illness or not? And if he was to take on more minutes, where would they potentially come from? We saw 6 from Highsmith, 8 from Zeller. Those look like the most vulnerable right from the get-go. Obviously, they could come from Kevin Love, but given how effective Kevin Love was, I think that's less likely. So what are your thoughts on Caleb Martin tonight?
Yeah, had some migraine issues. That was some speculation from the team and other reporting that it was altitude related. And I when I went hiking, I had this issue when it was a lot higher at Mount Bierstead. But that sucks, man. When you can't really see clear and all that. So definitely affected. It could have affected him. I don't think it's going to be. I still think it was more of the other guys had it going. I think that the one weak spot could be the overlap. We saw it for the point guards going from 16 to 7. That was mostly because of Kevin Love. It could get cut down a little bit more here, but maybe it's a little bit of Duncan and those guys. But yeah, I just don't think that Caleb Martin, unless he comes out hot, really has a path to upper 20s minutes, and obviously not low 40s like he was playing when he helped close out Boston when he should have freaking won the Finals MVP.
In terms of other, potential rotation notes on Miami, you noted Cody Zeller. If he went away, I think it would be a situation where Kevin Love would be a little bit more staggered. We actually saw 0 Kevin Love center minutes last game. I don't know if that has to do with a level of comfort that they have using Kevin Love as a primary defender on Nikola Jokic. We talked about this a little bit in our Established Run NBA podcast, reviewing game 2 and kind of previewing the rest of the series that went live last night. So check that out. If they have Kevin Love as a primary defender on Nikola Jokic, then they still have the issues of who else out there size-wise is going to defend Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. when they're on the floor, which gave the Heat so many problems in game 1. So that's the big impediment to Kevin Love taking over those center minutes, is simply they might need him as a power forward for his size out there. Now, in those Cody Zeller minutes that they're playing him at center, they're not playing Kevin Love next to him very much anyway. So they're tending to play smaller guys out there anyway. So maybe it's a moot point, but that's the only thing that I could come up with for why they have yet to utilize Kevin Love as a staggered center option away from Bam Adebayo. But if they do, that certainly would open up his minute ceiling, as we saw in the Milwaukee series, which I comped in the preview pod for this series. I comped the Miami rotations a little bit more to that one. Maybe we could see Kevin Love's minutes get into the mid or upper 20s in the best case scenarios. Who else do you think could see a potential swing in minutes up or down for Miami?
Yeah, and just to add to that too, we talked about Bam not overlapping with Jokic all the way, which has led to Zeller being out there for a lot of these Jokic minutes. That's another remedy. Maybe you try to run Bam out there with Jokic as much as possible, especially since Bam, everyone see had the upper hand, but Jokic didn't have as much of an upper hand. Just speaking from an offensive impact standpoint, Bam looked great offensively, but touches and all that good stuff. So I think that's a remedy there to avoiding Love guarding Jokic, because we've seen Bam play full halves. So, and now you don't have the altitude factor if you want to talk about that. So I think that's a remedy to kind of get Love in there. And then we'll see that, that would be kind of the non-Jimmy stint, which I think is fine. I think that you could kind of play Love with Jimmy. You'd probably play him with Jimmy instead there, and the guards can kind of fill it out. So, but yeah. So other than that, I think you would want Highsmith, because again, that would be no Jimmy minutes. I think you would want potentially, we'll see how the Jamal thing. There's so many things that overlap. And maybe Denver flips things too. Maybe they run, Jokic short first and then start him in the second. By the way, I think they're going to play him a lot. They kind of have to get this game. But I think Haywood Highsmith's minutes could definitely come up. That was a big miss on my part. I thought he was going to pick up a bigger on-ball responsibility. Turns out Jimmy Butler's healthy enough to do that now. And maybe he's going to sacrifice a little bit on offense if Bam is going to be able to carry such a heavy load. So I think there's some upside to Highsmith potentially eating into Zeller. I don't think Lowry's got too much wiggle room. I think Strus could certainly have a downside because Duncan's been lights out. We talked about him being just so good on layups. He's actually 100th percentile as a layup shooter in the playoffs. It's insane. The dude just doesn't miss. But yeah, I think that's kind of where it would be. It would be, if Zeller's down, maybe Highsmith comes up. and maybe more minutes for Love. That's maybe more minutes for Caleb as well, just to kind of eat in that way. But I feel like the guards are mostly stable. Of course, there could be a hot hand approach if someone's like really hot or cold.
Yeah, I think we got a pretty good indication last game with Max Strus that the ceiling is going to be those upper 20s minutes because they just really don't have. I mean, he could not have played a better game, and Duncan could not have done less going into the fourth quarter. And Strus played zero fourth quarter minutes again. Maybe if Duncan came out there and had a really poor rotation, maybe Strus kind of gets back in the fourth quarter. But we keep seeing Strus's minutes awesome through three quarters and then none in the fourth over and over and over again. So I think there's something about that fourth quarter rotation that Spo is doing differently. You referenced how effective that they've been in the fourth quarter throughout the playoffs. I know at Basketball Breakdown, who does YouTube videos as well, did a video speculating that Spoelstra is saving stuff for the fourth quarter specifically, that he has not shown opponents in at any point earlier in the game. Maybe that is tied to the personnel that he's using in those situations as well. But those are all things that I think make it so that it's hard to see a much bigger ceiling for Max Strus on the minute side. And we know the floor is vulnerable to some of these other potential situations. I agree with you on Haywood Highsmith. If they were to cut out Cody Zeller and they went to a situation where Kevin Love was not the backup center and they were matching Bam with Jokic, then in those scenarios, if Bam is matched with Jokic in the non-Jokic minutes, not very many, but those 4 to 8 minutes, let's say, where it's Aaron Gordon or Jeff Green at the center position, whoever you're considering the center in those lineups for the Nuggets, Highsmith could effectively get out there in smaller lineups and play kind of a bigger 4 or 5 role even potentially. So I think there's a path there, but even so, the path for Highsmith with Kevin Love in the starting lineup, probably hard to get past 15, 16 minutes without something really unusual happening in terms of him playing exceptionally well or someone else in deep foul trouble or different things, simply because of the way the rotations are working now.
Yep. And I'm kind of pulling up some stuff on, just looking at which lineups have been kind of working in the fourth, and it's just like so random. So I picked, I can maybe run a bigger sample, but like this is just lineups that have played 6 or more minutes. Some of them are garbage time minutes. But like all these lineups, there's so many of them that like aren't starters. It's just like he just knows how to push which button all the time. Like you see so many lineups. Just look how many positives there are. Like this is so many. It's just crazy. How just automatically knows what to do. The guy is insane.
Yeah, Spo's incredible. On the Denver side of things, as I alluded to, no injuries to talk through. Nobody listed on the official injury report here. The Nuggets rotation has been exceptionally clean and easy to understand and easy to analyze throughout the playoffs. It's been either 7 or 8 guys, the 8th man being Christian Braun. His effectiveness has largely determined his minutes, with lows in the DNP-CD and highs in the 15 to 18 range. We saw him play really effectively. Him and Jeff Green and Bruce Brown all played really effectively. That second unit was a big part of the reason that Denver was able to pull themselves out of a hole and into a relatively comfortable lead through the first half. On the road, you always worry that the stints could go a little bit worse and the minutes could get a little bit more condensed. I do think that is a risk for Christian Braun, more so than Jeff Green, but for Jeff Green as well. I think there's a chance. Now, we saw last game, Michael Porter Jr. played really poorly. Was not focused and locked in defensively, missed a number of rotations, shot the ball poorly, saw his minutes come down quite a bit. I think the challenge is the challenge to the downside of like a Christian Braun or a Jeff Green's minutes are simply that if any one of the starters is in foul trouble or not playing well, or like there's just not many other ways that Denver is going to potentially go. And I don't think we're at a position in a series that Denver is panicked in any sort of way to break out a new piece like a Peyton Watson or a Vlatko Konchar or a Zeke Naji or anything like that. So I think the question is ultimately, where do we think the Christian Braun, Jeff Green minutes are going to be? Do we expect to see even more condensed minutes from the starters? What are your thoughts on how Denver tackles game 3?
Yeah, I think Jamal Murray is probably playing like low 40s. We saw mid 40s in game 1. I think he's ticketed to a pretty big role there. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think they're going to really pull anything out of the gate. maybe if things go sideways, things get cut down. Obviously, MPJ. There's been some speculation from people who cover the team that it's kind of on the table. I saw a Denver Post. I don't know who wrote it, but I saw it on my Twitter feed saying like, "Oh, should MPJ come off the bench?" This is the Denver Post. This is like
That's
pretty
crazy
old school stuff. Not like hot takey. It's not really their MO. So that was kind of surprising. But sometimes their columnists do stuff. One of their guys got kind of ripped for anyways. But I'd be really surprised. MPJ's been so good. We talked about this on the podcast. He bounces back a lot. They're going to coach him up. Malone is an excellent game-to-game adjustment guy. He definitely shows his guys a ton of tape. I think they're aware that the stuff Miami was running is correctable. So I think MPJ could really bounce back here. And we saw he's got big minutes upside. We saw him play a ton. We've seen him play a ton when his shots are cold, including game 1. So I'm not ready for break glass in case of an emergency situation.
Yeah.
But could see condensed minutes. KCP's got to play better. All those 3 free throws he gave up, man. Just like you gotta be better there. Miami, you just can't give them free points. They will take them gladly. So I think they're going to go into the game with similar plans. But if things are not working out, they've got options in the form of Bruce Brown. Not as much Christian Brown. I think Christian Brown, if things are going well, probably doesn't play in the second half today. And then Jeff Green maybe plays a little bit less if Jokic has to play. Because, if you're Denver and you just got wrecked back-to-back fourth quarters, and usually you sit Jokic, it could be like it was pretty short in one of the games too. So maybe he's like,
he started the fourth quarter of game 1, and then
game 1,
he subbed in about 3 minutes into the fourth quarter in game 2. So you said if things are going well, Christian Brown maybe doesn't see a second half rotation. I kind of think if things are going well, he might see a second half rotation. If things are going poorly, I don't think he does. Unless it was like a blowout or something like that. I think they have room to get condensed. Certainly, I think we could see into the 40s for all of their starters potentially, or Bruce Brown getting into the 30s. So I would look for that. I agree with you that I don't think there's any break glass in case of emergency stuff here. I think the takeaway from Denver after game 2 is like, we played poorly defensively. We clean up those rotations. We stick to our fundamentals a little bit better. And we're right there. They were right there in the game anyway, entering the fourth quarter with an 8-point lead. And so I don't think there's much. I don't think there's much for Denver to panic about, nor do I think there's much on their roster that is even an interesting panic button to push. So I think they remain relatively straightforward, where their top 8 is a pretty decent sized gap from their 9, 10, 11 guys. Whereas Miami, the gap between their 8, 9, 10, 11 guys is not as big. And as a result, you see some more tinkering from Spo and some more ability from the coaching staff to kind of manipulate and coax the best out of their players, because those guys are all a little bit similar. And it's a little bit more of matchup type stuff or scheme type stuff that they're trying to deploy.
Yeah, it was minute 12 to start the fourth. They went down a quick 0-6 run, and then, okay, Jokic, get in there. So I think they might just start him and like, okay, hey, if you could hold up the whole time, great. If you're tired, come here. We'll give you 10 seconds off. So, I think Jokic could play a ton of minutes, man. And let him be a scorer. Let him go for 75.
All right. Any other thoughts before we get out of here? We'll obviously tackle more in depth the DFS side of things and the rotation side of things on the DFS show behind the paywall today at 5:00 Eastern with myself and Mike.
No, yeah, everyone looks pretty healthy on the Denver side. I think we covered all the Miami injuries. Definitely going to be an interesting game for see how it goes with the rotations. And this is really the first time Denver's been concerned, that they may not have a grasp on this series. Drop their first one home, obviously. So curious to see. This is the first we talked a lot about, when they lost 2 at home to Phoenix, or 2 in Phoenix. If it's like, oh, is it Peyton Watson time? Yada yada yada. We both don't think it's going to happen. So this is the first time that they're pressured, and maybe they do something that we're not aware of. So we'll probably talk a little bit about maybe 1K options if you do want to dip your toe in there.
Yep. Shout out to all of those who are, consistently checking in and joining us. Some of those from vacation, like Cloaked, who's sent us some great pictures of his vacation. Love to see it. George checking in as always. Pete, Lonnie, appreciate you all sticking with us through this content haze that is the NBA Finals. As a reminder, the Established Run NBA podcast with myself and Mike Gallagher went live last night with Game 2 reactions, analysis, and previews for the rest of the series and how we think things will continue to play out between Miami and Denver. Urge you to check that out wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, so on and so forth. And as always, please support the people who are supporting us. The show is brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. They have daily NBA snake drafts for money, running in addition to many formats of NFL offseason best ball contest, still running for huge cash prizes, including Best Ball Mania 4 with $15 million spread out across regular season and postseason prizes. If you're playing NBA Pick'em, in-season subscribers can use our tool to compare ETR projections to their fantasy Pick'em games. If you haven't signed up for Underdog yet, use promo code ETR for a matching deposit bonus up to $100. It's promo code ETR at underdogfantasy.com. As we alluded to before, myself and Mike will be behind the paywall at Established Run at 5 o'clock Eastern today, breaking down the showdown implications of tonight's game at 8:30. So check us out there. I think we've largely been pretty good with these showdowns, talking about the macro stuff and the macro approaches. I won the last showdown, but it was a massive dupe fest.
96,
so,
right?
Slight profitable. I had a much better team winning most of the game until Jamal Murray got hot late, but feel pretty locked in on this series. Wish Spo would have made the Kevin Love adjustment earlier. It would have been much more profitable for me. But we'll be there at 5 o'clock. As always, if you're uninterested in giving us your hard-earned dollars, we do ask for your hard-earned clicks. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, get notifications whenever we go live. And of course, smash that like button and help feed that algorithm. You help feed the algorithm. It helps feed our families. We keep feeding you the great injury information analysis you need to make your DFS lineups, your spread bets, your prop bets. So feed that algorithm. Nom, 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 nom. We'll be back on Friday for another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. Enjoy Game 3. We'll catch you on Friday. Take care, everybody.